Good afternoon. I'm Kelle Wendling. I am the president of the Mission Network sector at L3 Harris Corporation. So welcome to L3 Harris. We actually had our merger. The very end of June, beginning of July, we are now a $17 billion corporation with 50,000 employees and 20,000 engineers. So great news for Brevard County. My title translates into I run the $700 million FAA, or Federal Aviation Administration, and global air service providers business for Harris Corporation. I'm still getting used to the L3 Harris. I have been with the company for 25 years, and I actually started as a co-op intern undergrad with the organization. And if you had told me back then that I would be standing here today, 25 years later, in this role, I probably would have said, you're crazy. The path I took was very unconventional. I think maybe I didn't know better at the time, but I had the confidence to take a very uncharted path. And that's going to be part of the message I want to deliver today, is you really do have to be true to yourself, and you've heard some of that today. Let's see. I really do have this sign in my office. I think it kind of gives you an idea of where I'm probably headed with the speech today, too. And I think maybe as women, sometimes we're viewed that way. Going back to the beginning of my story, I was a fairly naive 18-year-old female from a very small town in the small state of Rhode Island. I know, there. New England, go Pats. Sorry, had to say it. Sorry, it was there. I am first-generation college. And because of a scholarship, I found myself at the Florida Institute of Technology right here in Melbourne, Florida. Go Panthers, right? Here I was, an 18-year-old girl, 1,500 miles away from home for the first time. And I walk into my very first class of my freshman year to discover it is 29 guys and me. I knew being in an engineering curriculum, there would probably be less women. Didn't quite expect it to be like that. It was intimidating, especially at 18. I felt like every time I answered a question, I was speaking for our gender. So it was a little bit daunting from that perspective. What I didn't know then was that it wouldn't be the last time I was the only female in the room. I've often been one of the few or the only woman in the room. And in fact, as we had our changeover to L3 Harris a few 6 or 7 weeks ago, we were having some executive meetings over in the corporate facilities, and I found myself sitting in a room with 23 men and me. And I thought, thank you. I found myself thinking, I knew I was going to give this speech, and I found myself thinking, well, maybe not that much has changed. Right? But then I thought, well, one thing's changed. I have, right? One of the good and bad things is I don't really notice it anymore when I'm the only female sitting in the room. We still have a long way to go with equality and getting the women where they need to be in the leadership organizations. As I reflected on the last 25 years, I realized it had a lot more to do with the perspective that I had and what had changed than what was going on in the industry. And I think as women, we can change the industry and we can make strides and we can push it, but we also have to own it and have the confidence to step up for ourselves. Our role as women is to not shy away from these kind of opportunities, to not be a wallflower. I have a no wallflowers policy in my business for both the men and the women. You have a seat at the table, take it. That means own it, have your responsibility, have an opinion. This style doesn't always come natural to women, right? It's a little bit more of a push for us, but we need to be stronger for ourselves and for others. My career actually started here at Harris as an entry-level software engineer. I didn't have a 4.0 GPA, I didn't go to an Ivy League college, I didn't know the right people. I was a hard worker. I liked exceeding expectations, surprising people. I volunteered to help projects in a broader role because I wanted to understand the context beyond just the small piece of the project that I had. Volunteered. Take advantage. Women can sometimes self-limit in those circumstances, feeling we are not ready for a larger role. Men don't usually do that. Organizing the schedule, aligning resources, driving to program deadlines, all helped me hone in my leadership skills. And after a few years, I moved into project engineering, which is where you're responsible for all the technical cost and schedule on one of our projects. Being more than an individual contributor, being responsible for the performance of others is a natural path for any leader that you have to take, and you have to master and experience it and be able to motivate that kind of performance. I had strong leaders to look to, mostly men, but they were very accepting of me, and they allowed me to openly discuss issues with them. They challenged me to voice my opinions. They let me know it was okay to feel overwhelmed. And they let me be a steady leader for the rest of the team. This informal mentoring is invaluable. I was strongly influenced by them, and it has influenced my leadership style today, and I encourage you to be willing to share your experiences like this with other women and individuals that are working with you. Eventually, I made the decision that I wanted to move into program management. I felt I was ready enough to run the entire project. There were some additional responsibilities, but I was ready to step up. I wanted that opportunity. I was still in engineering, so I went to my engineering manager at the time, also a female, and I told her what I wanted to do. And I will never forget what she said back to me. She said, "You can't do that." In her mind, I was still too young, maybe too inexperienced. Maybe I was a female. I think she believed at the time she had my best interest in mind. It wasn't a typical career path, and it certainly wasn't typical for a female, but I felt I was ready. So fortunately for me, I have a little bit of a personality. My husband's very much aware of this and learned it early in our marriage. The best way to motivate me to do something is to tell me I can't do it. Right. Rather than be deterred by her response, I was more determined. It was almost like a dare. Want to make a bet? I think I can. I did move into program management, and the first thing I realized was how much I did not know about that role. Yeah, I had a good grasp of cost and schedule. I understood how all that worked, but there's a lot of things that come with that program management element that I was not familiar with, like customer relation management. A customer calls all the time. They are pretty high maintenance people. Things like executive reviews. Executives are really high maintenance people. I can say that now because I'm there. There was also a financial and contractual acumen that I really didn't have as much experience with it as I would have thought. I have this sign in my office too. The first briefing I did on a new proposal to my boss's boss was a disaster. I was devastated for a day. I let myself wallow, and then I said, I know I want to do this. I know I can do this, so let's get back in the game. So I went to my boss, and we sat down, and I said, what do we need to do here? I'm not going to give up. We reviewed the plan. It wasn't as far off as I feared. We will conjure the worst-case scenario, but it was not that bad. And I am a firm believer that you will learn more from the things that do not go well than the things that go right the first time. A few days later, I redid the briefing. It was a success, and I moved on to do more program management and learned a lot about myself in that circumstance. I also had to recognize and accept my weaknesses. I formed a strong relationship with contracts and finance, knowing that I had to close the gap on the business acumen. I learned to leverage experts in engineering where my software background didn't extend, and I accepted that I wasn't, nor did I have to be, the smartest person in the room. These are lessons that extend to leaders regardless of gender. During my time in program management, I'm happy to say there were very few circumstances where my male colleagues or customers were inappropriate or made comments about my gender. I did have one customer say I was too young of a lady to be a program manager. He apologized after the program review we did. I had another engineer who didn't realize I was sitting in the cubicle next to him at the time, and he was on the phone and talking to his colleague, and he said, you know how those lady program managers can be. All I said was, Jim, I'm in the cube next to you. Happens. I give them credit. For the most part, they accepted me, but competence and confidence helps. In fact, I found that they respected me more for expressing my opinion, for appropriately challenging them, and being willing to challenge the status quo. Some might not accept you as easily. Remember, that is their problem, not yours. One of my favorite quotes from author Karen Salmonson is, "You will be too much for some people. Those are not your people." In my program management roles, I seem to attract problem programs, also known as red programs, challenge programs, loss programs. Many leaders, both male and female, have concerns about taking on assignments where they perceive they cannot be successful. That is the wrong mindset. Be undaunted. Don't be afraid that a single project will define your career. Success is addressing the issue. That doesn't always mean a good business result. Sometimes it means if you're in a hole, stop digging. I've already said you'll learn more from the things that don't go right than the things that do. But red programs should be viewed as accelerators for your learning and for your career. They provide an opportunity to execute differently. They're empowering. They demand decisiveness, action, quick action, creativity in your solutions. You have the opportunity to create the rules. Take it. Chart the course. I have run businesses that have performed poorly. I have had to cancel contracts and address the consequences with customers and the resulting fallout. I have run programs that have lost millions of dollars, and I have had projects that have crashed and burned. All intimidating, but all opportunities. It's all in how you handle these assignments and how you perceive you are going to be successful. The one word I tell my staff when they say, "What do you want in leaders in your organization?" is ownership. I tell them, you need to own it. Even if the results are bad, and if the progress is good, and you have a solid plan, and you're standing up there briefing it, and you own it, that will come through. That is palpable leadership. Being able to deliver a hard message to customers, both internal and external, is a skill every leader has to experience and master. Being able to keep a team focused and motivated under these trying circumstances, you need to understand your team will take on the personality of their leader. Be calm, be decisive, have a bias for action. I routinely tell my team, if they're going to come tell me something and they don't want me to do anything, start with, don't do anything yet. Because I am likely already putting a corrective action and plan in motion in my head, and I'm going to start to do something, unless they are just giving me an informational briefing and go, "I got it, just this is for your awareness." Be impatient, but in a good way. In a good way. Women leaders are unique in this regard, because we do tend to confront issues and not people. It's less personal for us. Might be because jobs are important, but they're not so much of our persona as maybe they are for our male counterparts. It's an advantage. We do well with softer leadership skills, organizational dynamics, compromise, coordination, collaboration, all typical strengths of women. Use them. Couple them with assertiveness and decisiveness so your team knows where you're going and why. Share the why. If you give the context to your team, they will feel included. It will let them understand why you're making the decisions you are. How often have we sat back and said, "I don't know why my boss is doing that," right? No context. It might still be a bad decision, but if you give them the context, it will keep them bought in and engaged. Switching gears, I want to talk a little bit about a taboo subject, work-life balance. I know, right? I firmly believe women have the advantage with respect to multitasking. Sorry to the gentleman in the room. But I think I'm right. I know some of you, like me, have told your spouses or significant others that watching TV while the dishwasher running is not multitasking. Okay. Face it, women are hard on themselves. We have a high bar. We throw in the laundry. We help the kids with their homework while we're checking email for work, right? This is a blessing and a curse. We want to be able to strive for executive roles at work, but also feel ownership and responsibility at home. It's a topic we don't talk about enough. Work-life balance is a more personal issue for women. It's just nature. Make no doubt about it, I struggle every day with my roles as wife, mom, executive. I won't kid you and tell you it gets easier. It doesn't. Every Sunday night, my husband and I sit down. We are dual career. He works for NASA, and we talk about the week ahead. Who's ever travels on the calendar first travels. My son, who is 12, has a tutor who's taking him to the tutor. My daughter, who is 16 and just got her license, so keep me in your prayers, it is, now that she can drive, it's going to be a lot easier. She makes a lot of plans for somebody who didn't have a way to get anywhere and has no money. So I know you all know, you can relate to some of this stuff, right? It doesn't get easier. But the balance a woman strikes between home and work is intensely personal, and it is individual to you. Find your balance, because that's where you will be happiest. It is your decision alone, and you need to make it work every day. Ask other women how they make it work. For those of you in this room, share with the other women how we make it work, because the concept that we're all superwomen doesn't exist. The answer is different for all of us. Help one another. One of the best things I think a woman leader can have at work is the advice of other women leaders. So please share and help each other. We need to stop pretending it's not hard. We need to celebrate the fact that it is full of rewards, but we also are full of guilt at times, and we need to let that go. We need to stop and talk about and confront unique challenges women face that men may not. And that kind of is the undercurrent of things we're not having enough dialogue about that we as leaders need to champion and drive today. You can do it. You can make it work. It is worth the struggle. I already mentioned I have a 16-year-old daughter. I want her to know she can be anything she wants to be. I want her to know she's going to have to work hard. I want her to know she should not be afraid to chart her own course. And I want her to know that when I was her age, I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life or where I would take my career. I just knew I had something to offer, and I would build on that. I also want my 12-year-old son to see the different dynamics of a female executive at home and understand not to be afraid of that as he moves on. I can really relate to some of Laura's story about, she's in her PhD program. She's probably pretty serious about her career, just saying. When my daughter asked me what boys liked in girls, this poor girl, I told her confidence. But think about it, it's true, right? Confident females stand out to men and other women. You can see it. Embrace your confidence. Take control. Be assertive. Be appropriate, right? We are in a professional setting, so you do have to do it. It's kind of like Latria said, don't walk off the cliff. But take advantage. Use your voice. Take your seat at the table. There's a few things that I tell my daughter that I think are pretty applicable to how sometimes we feel when we're kind of overwhelmed or beat down. And I know that these are the things she likes to hear least from me. Things like, you are not a victim. Suck it up, buttercup, which happens to be one of my favorites. And don't give away your power. Don't let other people make you feel like you don't have a voice. Don't let them influence how you react to them. Right now, she's still rolling her eyes at me most of the time. I'm hoping, as she grows and matures, she understands what I was trying to say. It does not matter that you are a female. The traits of good leadership and creating a high-functioning team are universal. Set an example, walk the talk, support your team. Be tough but fair. Earn respect. Don't demand it. Don't leverage positional power. If you can get the support of your team with positional power, it will be transitory at best. If you earn your team's respect, you will have their loyalty and they will go the extra mile for you. Naysayers will fall away. Your team will be successful or failure altogether. It's a common goal. It's not like one team, a team is going to either succeed or fail as one. You will rise with them if you take them there as that kind of leader that sets the example. So in closing, there's still some times when I'm in a meeting and I think to myself, how did I get here? Am I in the right room? That's the name of my speech today. Am I in the right room? We all have times when our confidence is a little shaken or we're feeling uncertain or unqualified. Remember, these are moments in time. I work with a very competent female leader out of the Air Force about 10 years ago. She had a mug, a coffee mug, and on it, it said, will this really matter a year from now? And I thought, wow, I need to embrace that. This week was pretty crazy for me for work, and today was pretty much on par with the rest of the week. And I was driving over here, I'm thinking, how am I going to give this leadership, motivational speech when I'm mired in the mess? And I started to think about, will this really matter a year from now? So keep that in mind. You'll get through it. We've got it. Women are resilient. We don't give up easily. Ask our husbands that too. Our creativity and unique perspectives are badly needed in leadership roles today. Don't be afraid to chart your own course. Sometimes you have to take that leap of faith. As women, we should seize that opportunity. And as women, we have the option to do it in cute shoes. Thank you.